Thank you for tuning in today. You're listening to the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. Here today, I have my special guest with me. His name is Micah Harris, and he is an author and amongst other things. So welcome, Micah. How are you today?
Hey, Adam. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you. And we have Sebastian Messer. That's my son. He plays live music in the studio. So he is going to be here right now on the radio with us. And you ready, Bass? All right, so here's Sebastian Messer playing some live music on the radio. Awesome, Bass. Thank you so much. And Micah, welcome.
Yeah.
So let me pull this up because I've got this all on my phone here. But let me pull up the bio that you sent me, which is pretty cool. Okay, so everybody playing at home with us, Micah Harris, it says strong heroines and banter are trademarks of Micah S. Harris's stories, and his recent fantasy portrait of a snow queen is no exception. His lifelong love of movies influences his fiction, but especially his 2016 Pulp Ark Award winner for Best Novel, Ravenwood, The Stepson of Mystery, Return of the Dugpa. I hope I'm saying that right. He is also the writer of Image Comics' Haven's War, and art with artist Michael Gaydos, Jessica Jones, and your website is minorprofitpress.com. So, welcome. Would you mind giving us a little overview, too?
Like so many, I guess, of your previous guests, I was long in love with writing as a kid. Back in my day, we were writing stuff on lined notebook paper and ink, and then you'd staple it together, and you got a book or a comic book. And so I've always been interested in storytelling. I was really keen on doing plot synopses of the old Universal horror movies and things I'd see on Shock Theater to other kids at church. It was just something that, I had a lifelong love of reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then wanted to move into telling my own stories, and I worked at it for many years before I had a breakthrough at the tender age of 42 when I got my graphic novel Heaven's War published.
Nice.
Which pit C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien and sort of the wingman. They're sort of the wingman for Charles Williams, who was also a writer in their circle. They are all pitted against Aleister Crowley.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of
Mr. Crowley. I was thinking that Ozzy singing that. The Ozzy song,
I'm
Mr.
Sorry, what?
The Ozzy Osbourne, the song, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I hear Crowley.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy Page was also a big, I had, something of an interest in him. I think he even bought a old house or something that Crowley had, a piece of property, chateau or something. That was sort of my big comics breakthrough, and such as, I say big, for me it was big.
That's fantastic. I mean, like Image Comics, I remember as a kid when McFarlane and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld and there were a bunch of them. Sylvester, trying to think of his first name. They all broke away from Mark Silvestri. Thank you. They all broke away and did their their thing with Image, and I think the couple of biggest ones that came out of there were Walking Dead, Spawn. There's like some other ones like Savage Dragon's another big one that came out of there, and They honestly, man, as a comic book reader, Image has got a strong lineup, I feel like, of new titles. And they're putting out a lot of new and good stuff. So that is really impressive for you to publish your graphic novel with them.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was very pleased to have that happen. And, of course, Michael Gaydos had gotten some notoriety from the time we started working on it, by working on what became Jessica Jones. At the time, it was known as Alias. And then, it came back as Jessica Jones with Michael again at the art to tie in with the Netflix show. But, that made the difference.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get that through. My last comic book work was also with the Image. It was a one-shot called Lorna Relic Wrangler. She was sort of the trailer park Laura Croft. And that had art primarily by Walston Wallace.
Did she get blown away by a tornado?
No. No, there's a whole Masonic conspiracy going on there between Washington, North Carolina, which is a real place, and Washington, D.C.
Speaking of comic books and stuff, I actually have an announcement I want to share with we have a local place that I like to go to. This is not a paid endorsement, y'all, and this is not an advertisement. I just want to share this announcement. But we have here in town, Michael, we have a place called Planet Fun, and they have comic books. They have like a ton of different like vintage collectibles, especially like, talking about Image. They have like a ton of like Spawn figures and stuff. And they're celebrating their 10th year anniversary this next Saturday. And so I've got one of the little flyers here, and it says, you're invited to Planet Fun's 10th birthday bash. It says we'll have raffle prizes, cool merch, party favors, and a whole bunch of fun. It's Saturday, June 5th, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. And again, they're celebrating their 10th birthday. And then something else cool that they're doing is talking about comic books and stuff like that. They actually have Jason Font, who was the Red Ranger from the Power Rangers Time Force. He's going to be, it says, and this is the announcement, it says, a real-life Power Ranger is coming to Planet Fun. Meet Jason Font, a.k.a. the Red Ranger from Power Rangers Time Force. Come join us June 3rd, Thursday at 5 p.m. It's time for the Time Force, is what it says. So I love that kind of stuff, especially like, comic book artists and writers, and authors. I love being able to, try to amplify the message, or try to, boost the message. Like us meeting was kind of random. Through Facebook, had people in common, and you're just like, hey, if you ever have an opening or whatever, let me know. And I just happen to have an opening today, so here we are talking.
Yeah, that's great. Again, I'm very happy to be here.
I am too, man. Speaking of Ravenwood, I want to, you wrote a book about Ravenwood, the Stepson of Mystery. I brought my copy of the original 5 stories with me today. I bought it, and I have not published Ravenwood yet, but I am going to be publishing a story with Ron Fortier and Airship 27. And so I thought that was really cool how you reached out to me and said, hey, you're going to be writing for Ravenwood, congratulations. I thought that was pretty cool. And I brought the original, I don't have the original, Agent X comics, what was it called? Agent X, or it was something like that. I don't have those original comics, but I have this anthology book of all the stories. And I actually bookmarked the page where it's got the backstory, and I want to read it for our audience so they kind of have an idea of who the character is. But then I want to talk to you and see, I want to hear more from you about, your Ravenwood story and your take on the character and all. How does that sound?
Okay, great.
Cool.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody. So this is an excerpt from Frederick C. Davis's Ravenwood, the complete series, Stepson of Mystery, featuring all 5 of Ravenwood's adventures in one volume, as written by one of the greatest pulp era, Frederick C. Davis. And that's directly from the cover. Okay, so this is on page 12 of the Murder Shrine story. And it says, Ravenwood had known India as a boy and as a young man with a deeper intimacy than usually rewarded the sympathy of a white native. Born of an American father who had plunged into the bottomless sea of the Oriental philosophies of a British mother, he absorbed its every mood. He recalled, as he stepped into the hushed room, the working of the strange forces which had shaped his life. A scene still clear after 15 years, the mountainous crags of Burma near the border of the forbidden Tibet, and his father's hunting camp, a stealthy watch because prowling tigers were near. A sound on the trail, lifted guns, then fascinated bewilderment. No beast had appeared but a man. Bewilderment because there was no settlement within miles, yet this hoary Hoary people being was walking, and hoary means like kind of like a ghastly, ghostly figure. If you're not sure, I had to look it up actually. Being that was walking with slow majesty, empty-handed, a man who seemed old as the mountains rearing behind him, white-bearded and all the understanding of a sage. Then a tawny flash at the trail's side, a husky warning, "Tiger!" The lithe, leaping beast striking toward the snowy bearded man. Ravenwood's father had fired with lightning swiftness. The extended claws of the tiger had dropped within an inch of the venerable pilgrim. Paws which would have torn the old natives to shreds fell limp. The ancient one had not moved, save for a lifting of his luminous eyes. In his native tongue he had said, "Always the Nameless One will guard you and your flesh." He had vanished along the trail as mysteriously as he had appeared in a jutted land where there was neither food nor shelter. The boy, Ravenwood, did not forget him. Years later, when the plague was sweeping Burmese villages, he had seen both his mother and father die in a tortured fever the same night, and then he had felt the first flash of the weird power which had remained with him since the intuitive voice speaking within his mind first said, "I am coming, my son." That night the Nameless One had come. From nowhere, informed by some intelligence beyond the grasp of the boy's mind, with a dispatch that no known means could explain, the savant had returned to fulfill his promise. Year after year, under the oracle guidance of the Nameless One, whose every glance and every word were sufficed with the wisdom of untold ages, Ravenwood had striven to absorb the teachings of yoga. His impatient, active Western temperament, incompatible with the apathetic abstraction of the Oriental, barred him forever from complete success, but he had won himself strange powers rarely granted to anyone but the native faithful. His ability to call upon forces inconceivable to his fellowmen marked Ravenwood as a man apart. Upon his return to the United States, the old yogi had accompanied him. Here, midway between earth and sky, shut away from the hustle of the modern metropolis, he continued to fulfill his pledge of faith. Here, in a room never entered by anyone but Ravenwood, steeped in the savor of India, he practiced the self-mortification of his mystic faith. Before Ravenwood now sat the Nameless One. And I thought that excerpt was a great backstory and overview of who Ravenwood was. He's a lot deeper as a character, but I wanted to read that because, it comes directly from the man who created him, Frederick C. Davis. And you, Micah, you actually wrote a story about Ravenwood, so you spent a lot of time, in the mindset of Ravenwood, the character. And so what was that like?
Well, I actually put that bond between the Nameless One and Ravenwood to the test. That is that vow that he makes his father. That kind of comes to a very sticky point. It was something that the Nameless One had hoped would not happen in Ravenwood's lifetime, but it does. And so I was happy that in my story, even though it's built around a real-life unsolved Hollywood mystery, murder from 1922, the murder of William Desmond Taylor. And though we do also take a side trip to ancient Hyperborea in it, as well as the heart of the story, or the heart of the story, is the relationship, the father-son relationship between Ravenwood and the Nameless One, he is, it's typical, I think. I haven't read all of them, but I think, it's kind of typical that the Nameless One is sort of off stage most of the time. He's there in his room in the high-rise meditating, and they have their telepathic bond. So, he's usually a important but peripheral character. In my story, he is actually taken. He is actually called to a council to pass a certain judgment, take part in something that was set in motion long before the North Pole froze, involving him. So on one hand, it's a very big story in scale. It's not that long. It's his novel, and I am proud to have written the first Ravenwood novel in the character's history. But at the same time, it's a very personal story, very focused on that father-son relationship. And, I think that's one of the things when you come, whether it's your own characters or you're writing someone else's characters, that, you want to get into the relationships. You want to understand the dynamics between them. I had a lot of fun with Inspector Stagg, sort of Ravenwood's nemesis on the law force, and showing him a bit younger at the beginning.
Hold that thought. I've got to do a station ID real quick, Micah. Everybody, today you're tuning in. You're listening to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, here today with my special guest author, Micah Harris. And we are currently talking about the pulp fiction hero character, Ravenwood. And so you were saying with Detective Stagg?
Yes, I enjoyed showing him as a younger beat cop at the beginning of my story, younger and a few pounds lighter, and to maybe hint a little bit at where he started putting on all that weight that he has in the actual novels and or the original stories. And so, that was fun. Stagg is always that voice of reason, the law man who ain't got no time for this supernatural hocus pocus, and but in my story you find out that you get a little bit of explaining why he's that way. He experienced something bizarre and that he could not account for. And it's very unsettling to him, to accept that there are more things in heaven and earth than we dream of in our philosophy.
Yeah.
As a man of the law, he depends on a very fixed world, a very ordered world. And something that challenges that, just sort of, he just would rather look the other way. But as it turns out, coinciding with the sort of abduction of the Nameless One, things are going on, and this old case from 11 years earlier, whatever, it's coming back. And it turns out he has a crucial piece of evidence from when he was a young beat cop, doing a bit of a sabbatical job in Hollywood. And he was on the beat when William Desmond Taylor was murdered. And he's called in to examine the crime scene, I don't know, are you familiar with the William Desmond Taylor story?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, there's a whole niche fandom about it. Taylorology, they call it. And it's a very fascinating story. He was a major Hollywood director in his time. he did an adaptation of one of Mark Twain's works that Mark Twain's daughter liked. Pulp readers may be interested to know that he attended a Hollywood Writers Conference that Edgar Rice Burroughs and Zane Grey both attended about Hollywood writers' rights.
Oh, wow.
And he was a major player, but he was a pulp character himself. He disappeared from his antique business in New York. He went off to watch a yachting race, and the next time his wife and daughter saw him was on the movie screen.
What?
Yes, he had changed his name, identity, become an actor, and then, you know, he became a major director. And yeah, it's just very. But the whole situation is bizarre, and then his murder is bizarre. There are all kinds of weird things around his murder that don't add up. And at that time, Hollywood was getting some heavy scandal, and you know, the whole cultural milieu was different, and the backlash that they were getting from some of the stars' behavior could have closed Hollywood down. You know, it could have ended it. People could have just decided they weren't supporting people living like that and, you know, ended it. So Taylor dies, is shot. He's murdered in his home. The body is laid straight out, which obviously he didn't fall that way. And they can tell by the hole in his clothes that he was either writing at the desk or had his hands raised when he was shot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a long blonde hair found on his body. And there was a young starlet who was obsessed with it. And she also had a stage mother who was very watchful of her and her crush on this much older man. So when Taylor died, the scene was compromised immediately. People were almost literally stepping over the body. His servant was doing dishes in the kitchen while the body was there. And true story, some guy pops in, says, "I'm a doctor," and pronounces the cause of death, and then it vanishes. Nobody ever sees that guy again. And then they turn him over, and that's when they find he's got a bullet in him. And again, these things had never been solved. He had a mysterious other valet who vanished, and then they think they found his decomposing body somewhere else in the country later where he had been killed. And like I say, Taylor is just a whole mystery in himself. There are different books out about him. What I had happen was that one of the things they were taking out at Hollywood that day, the Hollywood studio was taken out of the apartment that day, was a script for what was going to be his next movie. And that script was going to be an adaptation of a cursed Wagner play, opera, that had only been performed once before for the Golden Dawn, which was a higher echelon occult society that had people like Aleister Crowley in it. Waite, who did the famous tarot deck, you can still get it at Barnes and Noble, and also did text on the Kabbalah and Freemasonry. He was part of that movement. W.B. Yeats, the poet, they were all involved in this. And they saw the only production of this Wagner play, and even then it was stopped before they could finish it. And the guy who wrote the play was found dead in the Thames. And then, now this part I'm making all up. I know when we start talking about William Desmond Taylor, it gets so wacky that it's hard to know fiction from fantasy.
Yeah.
But I made up the Wagner play. And then when Taylor, my scenario is he was going to do it, right? He was going to make this movie, and he was killed. And there was also a tarot deck mixed in with that. And
that's part of your Ravenwood story?
That's part of my Ravenwood story, yeah.
Yeah. I found the character. Go ahead.
I can't do anything small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy because I was reading the character, and I actually felt like the character was a little flat at first, and I was talking with Ron Fortier about it, and but the character has a lot of potential, but the author, he only wrote 5 stories in like 1 year in this magazine, and that was it, and there was like no other character development, and it just almost seemed like it was something that he had started and just kind of just, I guess it might not have been that well received at the time or whatever, I don't know, because it was out in 1936, so we're talking a while back. But when I was talking with Ron, I feel like that there is a lot of potential to do some really cool pulp fiction, detective noir type stuff with this character, because he's not just a like a, I don't know how to say it. He's not just like a gritty, like crime detective. He has like these supernatural abilities as well, which is a little different, I guess, than the time, with some of these other, just hard knocks kind of, gritty noir detectives, and that's one of the things I thought was interesting about it, because with his character, and like I've read the first one, I've also listened to the first story. I bought the audiobook for the anthology that Ron put out. I'm gonna have to pick up your book too now, just so I can read it and check it out. But doing some character, I guess. I mean, it's like for example, like Batman.
Right.
I like Batman. I've known Batman since I was a little kid. I have a good understanding of who that character is, but they've taken Batman almost in every single direction that they can put him in, right?
Oh yeah.
And
chasing criminals over giant typewriters.
Right, multi-universe Batmans and all these other crazy things. They put him in every situation. And same thing with like Spider-Man and all these other characters, and that's what I'm talking about with Ravenwood. Like your story with the Hollywood, or the Holly weird stuff, sounds like a really cool tie-in, especially with with Ravenwood being like, they call him an occult detective or whatever, y'all.
Right.
And with what you're talking about, I feel like that story, you did that. What I was talking to Ron about wanting to do with my story, you pulled that off with your caper, and I think that's really cool that you did that, because I haven't even read it. I haven't read yours at all. I just found out that you had written one when you said, "Hey, you're gonna be writing Ravenwood." Okay, cool. And I was like, all right. But I found like it's so weird, because have you ever felt like that, where like you felt like a character just deserved so much more?
Well, we're kind of a small fraternity,
Right.
The Ravenwood Irregulars, I guess we can call ourselves. And,
well, how I got introduced to it?
You were going to be,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What?
When you said a small fraternity,
I said I heard you were going to be writing it. Right? Or you were interested in that. I heard Ron talk about that on the Airship 27 podcast, and we were already connected on Facebook. So, I thought it would be an opportunity to say, well, okay, here's somebody else doing a Ravenwood story.
Yeah.
It's a rather small fandom. It's not like all the people who've written Batman or Spider-Man, but he is a cool character. He is fun, and I've got kind of developed a very fondness for him. I get all the books that come out now from Airship. So I'll have the whole run. So I'll be getting yours.
That's cool.
Because I just I have a tender spot for that character, and I had such a good time writing it and enjoying and developing that cast. Like you said, there's still so much to be done.
Yeah.
Done with.
I thought it was interesting too, because when I met Ron, he was talking about. He said that he actually extended an invitation to me to write with them. And I was like, that's cool. I was working on a project, and I said, as soon as I get done with that project, I wanted to start looking into it. And of course, they have these different titles that they publish or whatever for these pulp fiction heroes, and I thought it was cool, and I wrote to him. I said, Ron, that you got so many different ones, based off of what you've read of my style of writing. What would you suggest? Because like I don't know most of those Pulp Fiction characters that they've gotten their stable or whatever. And it came back with the Ravenwood one. I think they're working on an anthology, right? And he came back with the Ravenwood one, and so I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I was talking to him about the idea that I have for like this caper for Ravenwood, this mess of a problem that he's going to be getting into, and Ron was like, we might. He said it's so crazy because they do like this 15,000 word stories, like novelettes or whatever, and they put them into the book. And he was telling me, he's like, you might want to think about making that one into a full book. And I was like, I like,
there you go.
Yeah, I like the idea too. So that's my goal, is to, I might have to flex on you a little bit and pick your brain some, as I'm writing.
I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
Yeah.
It's a unique privilege.
That's awesome. We've got to do the station break real quick, Micah. Hold tight. Sebastian, would you mind playing some for us? And everybody, you're tuning in today. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm here today with my special guest, author Micah Harris. And you're listening to us on WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming, and it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going, and you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation, and thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
This is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This portion of WRUU Savannah Soundings programming is provided by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have available online ordering and curbside delivery, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today and listening to the show. This first half of the hour, we have been talking a lot about like Ravenwood and Pulp Fiction and your book, Micah, with Ravenwood. But you also have like some other new stuff out with your Snow Queen books, right?
Yes, they are part of the Chronicles of Aristod, which is my new fantasy series, and I'm currently writing the third book, editing the third book in the trilogy, the Witches of Winter trilogy. and it is a what you would consider, I think, an epic fantasy romance. It takes place in an alternate 19th century in a kingdom that I cut out of the lower part of Norway and created a parallel world. You know how those things go. They don't always line up exactly. History as we know it. It's fun playing with history. The outcome of the Napoleonic Wars does weigh heavily upon it, the events. But what's interesting about it, I think, in terms of Ravenwood, is that the main villain, who is not the Snow Queen, the Snow Queen is sort of pardon the pun, warm-up act. In terms of the villains, she's becomes something of a pawn of an occult society. The main villain in Portrait of a Snow Queen is actually the main villain of Ravenwood, Return of the Dugpa.
Oh, okay.
This character, are you familiar with Randall Flagg in Stephen King's books?
No, I am not, unfortunately.
Yeah, Randall Flagg is a villain that goes from book to book for King.
Oh, okay.
He's the bad guy in The Stand. He's the bad guy in The Gunslinger. He's even the bad guy in King's juvenile book, The Eyes of the Dragon. And he may have different identities, but I think you can always pick him out by his initials. But he's the same villain, you know, who moves from book to book. And so the villain, Mel Gaydos, in the Ravenwood book, he is the villain also in the Snow Queen books.
I have a question, too, about the covers. Like, I saw the covers, and they look really cool. They kind of look like comic book-esque covers.
Yeah.
And I have a question about the one with the dancing polar bear and the guys. Like, everybody in that one has, like, crazy eyes, except for the girl. And what is that kind of like an allusion to the story, or?
Well, I think those are just two young kids in love.
I'm talking about, like, there's a set of eyes behind there. There's a polar bear. There's like a couple other people in the background. It's like crazy. Like, you got a bunch of like I don't know. It seems like a happy, like they're ice skating and stuff like that. But there's all this ominous stuff kind of hanging out in the background.
Oh yeah. Well, that's Mel Gaydos.
Okay.
That's the face of Mel Gaydos. Yes, he is. When that cover was done, yes, it's done by the artist Brett Blevins.
Mm-hmm.
Who, you familiar with Brett's work?
No.
He's drawn for Marvel and DC, and he's won a couple of Emmys for his storyboard work in animation. He worked on the Bruce.
Oh yeah, the art's great.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's fantastic. He recently he's done some Harlequin Gotham Girl stuff more recently, and he did a science fiction series with Robert Kirkland not too long ago, and but you know I asked him to have that skating scene because that particular book is the romantic element is keen in that one. I sort of put my Jane Austen bonnet on for it, that particular book, and I understand that if you want to have a court romance, right, one of the things you got to have is a castle in the background on the cover to sell it. You know, it's one of the tropes.
Yeah.
And, of course, a happy couple. But when I looked at it and it was beautifully drawn, I thought, wait a minute, there's no fantasy element here. You know, other than the skating polar bear, you know.
Right,
right. Which is, he is a character, by the way.
Okay.
In the book, Theoden. Yeah, Theoden. And he is a dancing polar bear. He's one of my, he's part of my trademark for Minor Prophet Press. He's my Toucan Sam and Tony the Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a dancing polar bear, so he was. He's light on his feet. But I was looking at it, and I thought there's no fantasy element here. And then I asked Brett, I said, can you put the villain, Mel Gaydos' leering face in the sky? You know, his evil face. And he did, and so now we got conflict. Now that covers not just people being happy, which is great,
Right.
if you're the one being happy, but that's not an interesting story.
Right,
Have
right.
conflict. And Brad
People
did
love
a beautiful
drama.
rendition of the villain, and I love it now.
Yeah.
Because you see everybody blissfully happy, but looking at them is that evil face who's like, going to come up from behind and smack them.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah, it does. It does
he
put
does.
some, like that ominous feeling to
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right. That undercuts it. But he's the same villain whose skull you see on the Ravenwood book.
Okay.
Which is also drawn by Brett. Yeah, that's Brett's painting. And
Oh,
he did
wow.
the interior illustration. Yeah, for my Airship 27 Ravenwood book. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the villain. He carries over. Now the cover for book 1 is by Aaron Lopresti, who is still active in comics. I mean, wow, he had about a 2-year run on Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
He did the Wonder Woman Conan the Barbarian crossover. Recently did, I think, a Justice League book. But he's a wonderful artist as well, and does lovely women. And we're Facebook friends. And when I was looking for a cover artist, I reached out to him, and I didn't have any idea, because he's a popular artist in comics and those things. But he said, I like trying some different things. And he delivered a wonderful, beautiful Oz-like, cover.
Yeah, speaking of cover artists, Jeffrey Hayes, I want to give him a shout out too, because have you seen Bobby Nash's Snow books, that the new poster stuff that Jeffrey Hayes has done?
I have not. I'm a little familiar with Bobby's Snow. Those are detective stories, right?
Right. Well, Jeffrey Hayes, he, those movie posters that you see that, remember the 70s over the top action type stuff?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Great era for movie posters.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's got that photo realistic style of painting. And speaking of reaching out to people, whatever, I was talking to Bobby I don't know, about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and we were talking about, I want, for covers, I was looking for, cover artists or whatever, and Jeffrey came up, his because of his work that he does with Bobby, and I was talking to Jeffrey, and he redesigned the Valhalla Books logo, and I was blown away with it. I love it when you can connect with an artist and they can see. I already had a logo that I did, and but I wanted it to be updated so it'd be a little bit more clean. And then he also, not only did he update it, but the icon that I got it from a stock photo that I licensed, and what he did was he recreated a very similar but new and different icon just for me with Valhalla Books. And I was like, wow. Yeah, dude. That's one of the things I love when you get a good cover designer or any kind of logo designer that they can, they like yours with the Snow Queen, those are really interesting covers. And like I said, that one, it captured my interest because I was like, what is going on here with all this, because I like comic books, first of all. So that's one of the things I like about the cover. It's a comic book. It's it's a book, but it's a cover. You could put it on a comic book easily. And then that second one, I was like, what's going on here? You get all this craziness going on, and they look like they should all be happy. But then again, you have that looming, foreboding figure in the backdrop, and you're like,
fantastic.
Right. That's why I was like, I was curious.
Want the cover to do.
Right.
You want your cover to make people linger on it.
Right.
Because there's always another cover to see, like in the snap of a finger.
Oh yeah.
Amazon. And I also want to give a shout out to an artist who's also my production guy and letterer and designer, Nathan Pride.
Okay, great.
Nate did the logos for my books.
Oh, nice.
And that cover layout, and the Chronicles of Aristotle logo, the branding is so important, and making sure everything, like this is a trilogy.
Right,
so,
right. They all match up, yeah.
Yeah, 2 different artists, right? And his logos and stuff that Nate has worked out in the layout, are wonderful. That just adds to that slick quality. And it highlights the art.
Yeah.
And also helps everything hold together as a piece in any potential buyer's mind. Your cover is the most important page in the book.
Yeah.
And as a writer, it's the one you'll have the least control over.
Yep.
You're an artist, so it's a little humbling.
Hold that thought. I got to do the station ID real quick. Everybody, you're tuning in today. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Adam Messer Show. And I'm your host, Adam Messer. I'm here with my special guest, Micah Harris, and you're listening to us here on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So, what is the synopsis of the Snow Queen series?
Well, it's basically you have a princess who is possessed by the Snow Queen.
Okay.
She is, as a young child, she was targeted by a cult, which wants to take the throne of Aristod as a stepping stone to a much bigger throne, the throne of the last world king. And so I did a little research on how people try to allegedly break down people's identities and erase their personalities and detach them from human connections and implant them, with a new identity, and to separate them from their mother and father. And that's what's been done to my Princess Freya.
So, let me interject real quick with that. That scenario happens very often in real life.
Really?
That scenario happens often in real life because you'll see where you'll have an abusive boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or whatever, and they try to isolate the person from their support system completely. Like their mother, their father, their friends, their family. They move them sometimes, way out of state or whatever. They separate them from everything that they know is familiar and is support. And then they're like, hey, I'm the only one that loves you or cares about you. Nobody else loves you or cares about you. And that literally happens all the time. So it's so crazy that you would actually write about that in a fantasy setting, because that is one of the most devastating, I think, and destructive kind of relationships out there in real life.
Right.
So that's
what happens with my character is you've also got the supernatural angle, and that they bring in a mirror in which this cult has imprisoned the Snow Queen. And the girl has had her own identity erased, and she looks in that mirror and sees the Snow Queen, and zap, they sort of got her, right? But the real girl is under there, and she's slated to be queen. And her whole family gets wiped out on this otherworldly crossing glacier that's on the mountaintop.
Wow.
Mountain range of Aristod. So she has a regent, and she's very despicable. She's just got that Snow Queen snarky personality. She doesn't think she's human anymore. She just thinks of herself as an elemental, and plus she's afraid that if she develops a connection with a human being and feels human again, her body will explode into snow and hail, and her consciousness will just blow with the ice and snow as long as the world is there, but she can never have human contact again. She can never know human love. She'll just be in a disembodied consciousness. And that's part of this number they've done on her. But then she gets a young tutor, and she's almost 18, and he's in his early 20s. And, obviously she doesn't get out much. And so she begins to develop feelings for him, and he does for her as well.
Her cold heart starts to warm up.
That's right. She can't. That's right. Dare I say it? Her frozen heart This is
Begins
the
to
first
thaw.
book is kind of like a cross between Frozen and The Taming of the Shrew, a little bit. But then
It kind of sounds like
first,
Cinderella, not Cinderella, Snow White with the mirror, mirror. You know, the trapped
But
queen.
you see, there's a mirror thing in Hans Christian Andersen's original Snow Queen.
Right.
That whole story starts out with these demons making this warped mirror.
Oh, wow.
And you know what I did? I think I'm the first person in literary history to cross over Hans Christian Andersen and Robert E. Howard.
Okay, cool.
Robert E. Howard has a King Cole story, the Mirrors of Tulsa Doom, and Cole gets into staring into these crazy mirrors that are, he's seeing weird things, and that was very, very influential on my Aristod story. By the end of the first book, the Snow Queen problem is, cleared up. There are other conflicts.
Yeah.
And the first 3 books are actually the rise of this princess to become queen.
That's awesome.
And,
We got we actually I can't believe it's already been almost an hour. We've got just a couple minutes left, Micah, so we got to wrap it up for the hour. That's crazy. It's been going by so quick. Where's the best place that people can get more information about your books online?
Well, I'm on Amazon. All my books on Amazon. I have an author's page, Amazon Central. You mentioned my website, minorprofitpress.com, and I do have a contact page. I do an author's newsletter. It comes out about once a month. If anybody would like to sign up for that, they can unsubscribe at any time, and it's free. There is a website dedicated to the Aristod Snow Queen, which is winter books, and that's aristod.com.
Spell that for me.
AARASTAD.com.
Okay, great.
And there's lots of supplemental material and nice pictures by other comic book artists there.
Awesome.
As well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Micah, for being a guest today on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to reading your Ravenwood story and then checking out the Snow Queen stuff too. So thank you very much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and let's talk some more about Ravenwood sometime.
Definitely. And one more time, just before we go, what is that, the website? It's Minor Profit Press. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's minorprofit.com.
Minor Profit
Press.com.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, everybody. You've been